Turn 1 Soul Ring.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to do.
You know what?
Next time we're gonna have you do the countdown, and we'll see. We'll see how
All
it
right,
goes. I
all
gotta
right.
turn my record volume down here. It's going crazy out there at the lake. Oh boy, getting wet and wild. That's what you do at the lake, right?
Are you out at the lake?
No way. No, the lake.
I was gonna say that's
The lake.
it's quite the drive today.
The lake is closed for business. Yeah, and I mean, I don't like driving on the highway at the best of times, but I don't know what it's like today. It's probably fine.
Well, I mean, it snowed all night. It's
Yeah, but the snow doesn't stay on the road if everyone's driving on it.
That's true.
So
It's pretty slippery in town here.
Oh yeah.
We were we took the truck to the corner store to grab a few things for supper last night, and we were like slip sliding.
Yeah, and people, I love as soon as like there's a little bit of precipitation in the air. It's like, even if it's foggy, people are like, I don't know how to drive. It's great. It's just like, take that man's license away.
Jesus, take the wheel.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the show. This is Turn 1 Soul Ring. I'm Kevin.
And I'm Riley.
And today on the show, we are continuing our Innistrad Crimson Vow set review with part 2. Last week, we discussed the blue and white cards from the set. Not all of them, of course. Our set reviews are not exhaustive. Just the ones that tickled our fancy. And today we are going to talk about the black and red cards. And if you're lucky, maybe the green cards too. So, without any further ado, our first black card today is Demonic Bargain. It's 2 and a black for a sorcery. Exile the top 13 cards of your library. Then search your library for a card. Put that card into your hand. Then shuffle. So this seems pretty risky in a singleton format, but maybe in constructed? I don't know. What do you think, Riley?
I don't know. I think it's fun. I think just the experience of potentially exiling the card that you have in mind is pretty funny.
It is.
And then and then just trying to figure out a plan B at that point.
Yeah.
So like 3 mana for a tutor, that's a pretty good rate. I'm not going to complain about that. It's probably going to be more affordable than a demonic tutor. So I think it's a pretty fun card, and I'd run it if I had a copy in Commander. Mm-hmm. Our artwork's also fantastic. Sam Gay, interestingly not related to Rebecca Gay, but trained under Rebecca Gay, which is kind of ironic.
Yeah, it's probably like Smith over there, though.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, and you know, I guess the chances are like 1 in however many cards you have left in your deck that you're gonna exile the card. So
yeah, you should be fine.
You should be fine. And I mean, we all play Gamble. And how many times have you discarded the card that you tutored for with Gamble? I've done it at least once, and it feels really bad.
And I don't know, like there might be a strategy out there where somebody cares about having a certain number of cards or a certain type of card in exile. So just having that mass exile effect you could swing it in your favor. Mm-hmm. There might be something there.
Yep. Next up is Fel Stinger. It's 2 and a black for a zombie scorpion, 3/2 with death touch. It has exploit. So when this creature enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice a creature. And when Fel Stinger exploits a creature, target player draws 2 cards and you lose 2 life. So they just...
the target player would lose 2 life.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, and I just noticed the scorpion's like on a horse. Oh my goodness. I didn't even notice that before.
Eating a horse?
Just eating
like cleaved off its arm.
Oh man, that's gnarly. Don't take the hoof.
Pretty nasty.
Yeah. Yikes.
There's a vulture, I think it was in the cons block when exploit was around there too. It was a 4 mana 2/3 flyer that exploited and did a similar effect. This one, on the other hand, is 3 mana for 3/2 death touch that draws 2 cards. Like, what? Yeah, hell yeah, I'm into it. I love 3 mana draw 2 in black, pretty solid. And at its worst, that's what it is. You could exploit itself, sacrifice itself. Or if you really needed that 3/2 Death Touch and you had nothing else to sacrifice, I guess the worst case would be that it's a 3/2 Death Touch for 3. I don't know. It just seems like a pretty solid card all around.
Yeah, plus it fulfills your hatred of horses, so it's a fantastic card all around.
Well, I'll have a horse tribal deck and then an anti-horse tribal deck.
Graph Reaver is next. It's 1 and a black for 3/3 zombie warrior. It has exploit, and when it exploits a creature, destroy target planeswalker. At the beginning of your upkeep, Graph Reaver deals 1 damage to you. I think this is my favorite art in the entire set. Like that sort of like Wicker Man effect is just super scary.
Yeah, just a 2-mana 3/3. I mean, it pings you every upkeep, but like, I'm into it if it means that like I can just randomly sacrifice a creature and blow up a planeswalker. I don't know. I don't know if Commander is the spot I'm most hyped about this for, but like Canadian Highlander I'm thinking about. Just having a really solid rate on a 2-mana body.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, because in Commander there aren't that many planeswalkers on the battlefield at any given time, and if there are, they usually don't stick around because they have to survive a full turn cycle. You need a lot more support to be successful with planeswalkers in Commander, because people see them and they're like, yeah, I got to get rid of that.
Yeah, and like unless you, I don't know, really care about a zombie or a 3/3 zombie, I don't know. I just don't see it being super powerful in Commander, but Canadian Highlander or another singleton format, like it's a pretty strong card in and itself.
Yep. Headless Rider is next. It's 2 and a black for a 3/1 zombie. Whenever Headless Rider or another non-token zombie you control dies, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token.
Replaces itself with the 2/2 zombie.
Okay, our first transform card today is Henrika Domnathi. She's a 1/3 for 2 black, legendary vampire with flying. At the beginning of combat, on your turn, choose one that hasn't been chosen. Each player sacrifices a creature. You draw a card and you lose 1 life. Transform her. And the flip side is Henrika Infernal Seer, a 3/4 legendary vampire with flying, death touch, and lifelink. And for 1 black, each creature you control with flying, death touch, and or lifelink get +1/+0 until end of turn. So this is, I think Riley shared this with the group when it was spoiled, because this is like a legendary, this is like Vampire Nighthawk Tribal. So
Yeah.
so if you could make that a deck, anybody.
Well, yeah, because you have that 1-mana death touch lifelink vampire. Then you've got the 2-mana death touch lifelink vampire Aetherborn. I can't
Gifted
remember its
Aetherborn.
name. Gifted Aetherborn.
Yeah.
And then you've got OG Vampire Nighthawk. You've got the vampire from Zendikar Rising that cares about like amount of card types in opponents' graveyards. And then you've got Henrika, and then a whole host of other lifelink creatures or death touch creatures. So yeah, this
getting that +1/+0
Vampire Nighthawk Tribal.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
Okay, Hero's Downfall is next. I think this is the first reprint we've talked about in this set review. It's 1 black for an instant. Destroy target creature or planeswalker. I put this on the list because this card has been downshifted from rare to uncommon. So just wanted to mention it because it's premium removal for the limited format, and now we're just going to see it that much more often. So that's nice. I love a good piece of premium removal in limited.
Yeah, I agree. Good card.
Path of Peril is next. It's 1 black for a sorcery. It has cleave for 4 white-black. Destroy all creatures with mana value 2 or less. And so if you cast it for its cleave cost, you just destroy all creatures. It even feels like there's like a shoe in my mouth, like talking about like reading the card and then be like, okay, we gotta go back, destroy all creatures. So just another like kind of modal board wipe. It's gonna be really efficient removal in the in the early game, hitting creatures with mana value 2 or less. And in the late game, it's going to be a sure thing. It's just going to destroy all creatures if you want to pay 6 for it. The only catch is that in Commander, you have to be in at a minimum Orzhov colors. So that's kind of the only thing that I don't like about this card. I love a good early board wipe. Get rid of a bunch of mana dorks. Get rid of a bunch of utility creatures. Someone's trying to get their game going, and you just ruin their day.
I like ruining people's days.
Oh, I know you do. I know you do. Persistent Specimen is next. It's 1 black for 1/1 skeleton. You can pay 2 and a black to return it from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped.
Hell yeah. Just another skeleton for Skeleton Tribal.
Are there like skeleton legends that are the commanders, or are there like are there any good like
there's Ghost not Ghost Ship. I think it's Skeleton Ship.
Oh
Just
god.
like a skeleton pirate or whatever. I don't know. It's as far as Skeleton Tribal goes, it feels like more of a meme, but like this is not a bad skeleton. It's common, so it's pauper legal. So if you wanted kind of like a reassembling skeleton effect, this is a little bit better than Sanitarium Skeleton, which goes back to your hand for 3 mana. But this one goes onto the battlefield.
Yeah, I like it. Toxrill the Corrosive is next. It's 5 black for a 7/7 legendary slug horror. At the beginning of each end step, put a slime counter on each creature you don't control. Creatures you don't control get -1/-1 for each slime counter on them. So whenever a creature you don't control with a slime counter on it dies, create a 1/1 black slug creature token. And you can pay a blue and a black to sacrifice a slug and draw a card. So this is like removal, and it gets around indestructible, but it could take a while.
Well, at the beginning of each end step, put a slime counter on each creature you don't control.
Yeah.
Like, so if this thing hits the battlefield and you're able to keep it around for like a turn cycle, like it's going to be hard for your opponents to keep any kind of creatures around.
For sure. Yeah.
Well, first of all, it's a slug, a legendary slug, so Slug Tribal, shout out. And we had like Slogurk not Slogurk the Overslime. I'm thinking of, I think it was Slug Monster or Sludge Monster. Yeah, that's the one. Sludge Monster, which put slime counters on things too. So, I don't know. This card seems pretty funny.
Yeah, and it's Dimir, right? You also have access to blue if you did want to put this thing helming a deck. And I mean, it's a 7 mana 7/7, so you're gonna have to, if you want to get it out early, you gotta ramp for it. But I guess it'd be too good if it was like it got a discount of 1 generic mana for every slug you controlled or something like that. I don't know. I don't know how easy it is to get slugs on the battlefield. I haven't really looked into it, but
well, you have to play slug.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's too easy.
Yeah, I guess you could do like shapeshifters. Or changelings.
Yeah, that's cheating.
Yeah, it is cheating. Yeah, Riley's a tribal purist. He doesn't do changeling. He's better than that.
Unless it's tribal. And you're trying to make your creatures every creature.
Oh yeah, well that's changeling tribal. That's acceptable. But yeah, just like seems like a fun build around for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Undead Butler is next. It's 1 and a black for a 1/2 zombie. When it enters the battlefield, mill 3 cards. And when it dies, you may exile it. When you do, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand.
Yeah, I mean, this is just like on either end, coming in or leaving. Like, this is kind of just synergizes fairly well with itself. I like Stitcher Supplier, which mills 3 when it enters and mills 3 when it dies. But this is kind of like a Stitcher Supplier mixed with like what's the classic 4 mana Gravedigger.
Gravecrawler?
So you kind of,
or Gravedigger.
Gravedigger. Yeah. Because Gravedigger enters the battlefield and returns a creature card from your graveyard to your hand. And this is just like, I don't know, like a solid zombie role player, fills your graveyard, returns things from your graveyard. I'd be happy with this in my 2-mana slot.
So our last black card today is Undying Malice. It's 1 black for an instant. Until end of turn, target creature gains. When this creature dies, return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control with a 1/1 counter on it. This card kind of, I don't know how I missed this card, because I feel like I would have put it on the list. I love effects like this, like 1 mana, protect a creature. It almost, we get these in really every color, and it always feels kind of like a quasi counter spell.
Yeah, and just another, I think at this point we probably have 5 1-mana cards like this that do the same kind of effect. So just getting another one is perfect for Commander, because if you care about, getting that ETB effect, saving a creature from a removal spell, this is a pretty solid kind of form of protection.
Okay, moving on to red here. Our first red card is a reprint. It's a Braid. It's 1 and a red for an instant. Choose 1. A Braid deals 3 damage to target creature or destroy target artifact. So although I don't love the art on this reprint, I'm more of a fan of the original art. I did want to mention it because, like Hero's Downfall, it has been downshifted from uncommon to common, so it is now pauper legal.
It was, I think it was downshifted in a Masters set, like a double Masters or something like that.
Fine.
It was previously downshifted.
All right. Well, then I'm just going to cut this out of the episode.
I don't know. You don't like the art? I really like this art. This art's pretty sweet.
Yeah, it looks like something you'd see on the wall at a tattoo parlor. People flip through them and it's like, who's getting these? But maybe I'm just being a snob.
I don't know. It looks pretty cool to me.
Well, that's all that matters. Next up is Alchemist Gambit. It's 1 red for a sorcery. It has cleave for 4 blue, and red. Take an extra turn after this one. During that turn, damage can't be prevented. At the beginning of that turn's end step, you lose the game, and then you exile Alchemist Gambit. So if you cleave it, you just take an extra turn, and during that turn, damage can't be prevented. And I put this on the list, I think, before the full rules for cleave had been released, or before I knew them, because I was thinking that this would slot into Narset, but because it's an alternate cost like Overload, you can't cast it. If you cast the spell for free, you can't cast its alternate cost. You have to hard cast it.
Yeah, so unless you're pretty certain that you're gonna win,
don't do
the
it.
Following turn, be careful. Mm-hmm. But I would run this in Obeka. Obeka can end the turn. So,
and then you don't lose.
Slots right in there.
Yep.
And then you don't lose.
Next up, we have Ancestral Anger. It's 1 red for a sorcery. Target creature gains trample and gets +X/+O until end of turn, where X is 1 plus the number of cards named Ancestral Anger in your graveyard, and you draw a card. I wasn't sure when I saw this card if it was an accumulated knowledge type of card, where thinking it was a reprint, and it's not.
No, it's new, but the fact that it cantrips is really important. So decks like Feather care about this kind of targeting and drawing a card effect. And then I was even thinking about this for my Riel the Everwise deck, because it gives Riel trample in that case and replaces itself. So it might be an include there as well.
Yeah. Cemetery Gatekeeper is next. It's 1 and a red for a 2/1 vampire with first strike. When it enters the battlefield, exile a card from a graveyard. Whenever a player plays a land or casts a spell, if it shares a card type with the exiled card, Cemetery Gatekeeper deals 2 damage to that player. Why would a vampire be guarding a cemetery?
I don't know. Maybe he's just because this is the whole Olivia Voldaren wedding, right? So maybe he's just standing in front of their cemetery being like, guys, don't go this way.
Maybe
there's a bunch of zombies on the other side of this gate.
Can't you hear them groaning?
Yeah. I mean, 2/1 first strike for 2 mana. incidental graveyard hate, and you could even exile like a land, and then just for like the rest of the game, just every time an opponent plays a land, they take 2. So that's going to add up pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. This card seems, again, like just one of those, all these little bits and pieces, like alone, not very exciting, but these pieces all add up to like a pretty strong card. So I'm into it.
Change of Fortune is next. It's 3 and a red for a sorcery. Discard your hand, then draw a card for each card you've discarded this turn. So this would also slot into Reality Everwise.
Yeah.
Even though it's 4 mana,
Yeah,
that's a little high on the curve for that deck.
Yeah, I'd agree. It is a little high on the curve, but it's nice that you count each card that you've discarded this turn. So not just the cards that you're discarding with Change of Fortune, but everything before that too.
Yeah, and like, I mean, if you're doing a lot of discarding, this card is perfect, but otherwise it just kind of seems like a clunky sorcery to me. Like it's not.
Yes. Yeah.
It's nowhere near as effective as like a Windfall or of course a Wheel of Fortune.
Or even just like a Winds of Change.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Winds of Change is 1 mana.
Yeah. But yeah, it's it can be super effective in the decks that want to be doing this. Curse of Hospitality is next. It's 2 and a red for an aura. Enchant a player. Creatures attacking enchanted player have trample, and whenever a creature deals combat damage to enchanted player, that player exiles the top card of their library. Until end of turn, that creature's controller may play that card, and they may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast that spell. So this is a really good like arch enemy type of card. And although I wouldn't want it played on myself, and in general, when players start casting their opponent's spells, the game can tend to slow down, right? It's a different it's like you start piling a different deck a little bit, and that just tends to take longer. And longtime listeners of the show and Riley know how much disdain I have for that kind of thing. But if somebody is running away with the game, this could be a piece to kind of deal with them. And if you're in a closed meta like Riley and I, we do the league thing. This would be a great card to play on, someone like Riley who tends to win a lot.
Oh, I don't. Let's clarify. I don't tend to win a lot. I just tend to get a lot of points.
Yeah. Which is what really matters.
Well, in a way, like I feel like our league has a few different axes that you kind of play on. You could definitely go for the win and get the packs, or you could go for the points and get potentially more packs at the end. But yeah, like I guess what I'm saying is that Curse of Hospitality is pretty cool. It's like if you care about curses, if you care about having some card advantage that's associated with attacking people, like it's going to be kind of fun. But you're right to say that people don't often like having their cards played against them, and it can add time.
Yeah.
But I thought you liked my game actions. That's why I take so many.
Well, we'll have to talk about that when we have more time, I think. Maniform Hellkite is next. It's 2 red for a 4/4 dragon with flying. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create an XX red dragon illusion creature token with flying and haste, where X is the amount of mana spent to cast that spell. Exile that token at the beginning of the next end step. They should have given this thing haste, like it just wasn't quite there.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. It's kind of okay. So exile them at the beginning of the next end step. So that's a delayed trigger. So Obeka could keep them around, or like a Sundial of the Infinite effect could keep them around. Spell Slinger, you're probably just gonna, storm off and then send a bunch of spirit illusion thing or dragon illusion things at your opponent. So that's pretty cool too. Yeah, like just it's a dragon. It flies. It hits people hard. It generates a lot of value. It seems like a solid card.
Oh yeah. Reckless Impulse is our last red card today. It's 1 and a red for a sorcery. Exile the top 2 cards of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play those cards. So it's kind of feels like 2 mana, draw 2.
Yep. This card is fantastic. I like it. It's like red card advantage. Like, you know that one of my favorite cards is just like a clean chart of course.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So I would definitely play this. You know, speaking of our league decks, I'd definitely play this in my league deck. I'm playing the Prismari Performance deck.
Yep.
And it's got quite a few high end cards, but overall this is a pretty solid cantrip, a pretty solid way of hitting lands and keeping the cards flowing.
Yeah, if only we could get something like this in white, like, you know, I don't know.
Something where we didn't have to jump through so many
I
hoops.
don't know how it would work. It's like if you control 3 creatures that each have different powers, you get to do this effect. Right?
Yeah.
Maybe
And
that's
the sun has set
right.
already.
Yeah. Yes.
And you're feeling good.
Gotta be feeling good. Oh god,
Yeah.
fucking white card draw, it's ridiculous. Okay, so moving on to green. Our first green card is Ascendant Pack Leader. It's a single green for a 2/1 wolf, and it enters the battlefield with a 1/1 counter on it if you control a permanent with mana value 4 or greater. Whenever you cast a spell with mana value 4 or greater, put a 1/1 counter on Ascendant Pack Leader.
So I have a mono green Stompy Canlander deck. This is a 2/1 for that deck, so I'm already happy at that baseline.
Yeah.
There's not a ton of like 4 mana permanents in that deck, but I think later on in the game, like if I top deck this and I already have like a 4 mana beater, I'm happy with this being like a 3/2 for 1 mana. So
yeah, that's the nice thing about this is it gives you both options. It's kind of like Garrick's Uprising, right? Like you get to draw the card if you already control the creature with the power 4 or greater, and if you play a creature power 4 or greater, you get to draw a card. So yeah, it's just nice to have that versatility. And for like Toski Historic Brawl, I would definitely try this card in that deck.
hell yeah.
Next up is a transform card. Front side is Avabrook Caretaker. It's 4 green for a 4/4 human werewolf with hexproof. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put 2 +1/+1 counters on another target creature you control. And it has Daybound, which I think is the first time we're talking about this in this set review. So if a player casts no spells during their own turn, it becomes night next turn. And so the flip side is a 6/6 jacked werewolf with hexproof. Other permanents you control have hexproof. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put 2 +1/+1 counters on each creature you control, and it has Nightbound. So if a player casts at least 2 spells during their own turn, it becomes day next turn. It's a lot of counters.
Yeah, it's nice that it triggers on combat, so you're not waiting like a full turn cycle on either side.
Yeah.
If you're playing this, you know, on your first main. But I don't know. Like, I think if you're going to include this in your deck, you're either A, caring about werewolves, or B, you care about the front side just as much as you care about the second side. You know what I mean? Like if you are playing like a counters deck and 2 +1/+1 counters on a target creature is going to be helpful, then sure, it's a 6 mana card, so like that's a big investment for even just a 4/4 hexproof.
Yeah.
But obviously the backside is just ridiculous. I just find like in Commander, you're probably going to have a harder time keeping it on its backside than on the front side. So just got to keep that in mind when you're evaluating werewolves.
Yeah, werewolves and Commander for sure. Cemetery Prowler is next. It's 1 green for a 3/4 wolf with vigilance. Whenever a Cemetery Prowler enters the battlefield or attacks, exile a card from a graveyard. Spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each card type they share, with cards exiled with Cemetery Prowler. Just a fantastic, versatile mana cheat creature. And again, I'm going to take this for a spin in Toski Historic Brawl.
Yeah, for some reason this is a 3 mana 3/4 with vigilance that has like the same text as like the white version of this card, but the white version is 4 mana for some reason, and it's also a 3/4.
Well, but
I didn't include the white version
is the
in the list.
is the white one a mythic?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Well,
I think it makes like 1/1s.
Okay.
But you have to like jump through some hoops for some 1/1s.
Yeah, of course.
But
You're
it's
just
like
gonna get
a
one
4 mana 3/4, and I'm just like, this. The green one is a 3 mana 3/4.
Yeah,
it's like already good.
Yeah.
Incidental graveyard hate when it enters and attacks, and then just makes things cheaper. So I don't even get it.
That's pretty good. Cloaked Cadet is next. It's 4 and a green for a 2/4 human ranger with training. Whenever this creature attacks with another creature with greater power, put a 1/1 counter on this creature. Whenever one or more 1/1 counters are put on one or more humans you control, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. See, it surprises me that they would put that on a green card. You expect to see this ability triggers only once each turn on a white card, but after what we just saw with Cemetery Prowler, I'm surprised. I'm a little surprised. And hurt.
I mean, if you're playing a human deck, well, I mean, even this is a human. So if you're playing a +1/+1 counters deck, and you just want to draw some cards from, playing a +1/+1 counters deck, then this is fine.
Yeah,
it's 5 mana. It's a little awkward in that sense, but
yeah,
I don't mind drawing
considering the last card, I think it should be like a 5/6 power toughness wise for the cost.
It's gotta be.
I mean, it's only uncommon though, so we have to take that into consideration. Next up is Cultivator Colossus. It's 4 triple green for a star plant beast with trample. Its power and toughness are each equal to the number of lands you control, and whenever it enters the battlefield, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. If you do, draw a card and repeat this process. It's kind of got like Uro vibes a little bit, so the top part of the text, the trample's nice, its power toughness being equal to lands is fine. That's not really what I'm interested in. I have a Simic lands deck that just the win con is like drawing your whole deck with a lab man on the battlefield kind of thing, and so there's several engines with creatures that tap to put a land from your hand onto the battlefield, and then whenever a land enters the battlefield you can untap, that kind of thing. So you just get to go, and this would be perfect in a deck like that. It is 7 mana though, which is a lot, but again, if you're in a lands deck, you're ramping really hard, you're putting a lot of lands on the battlefield, getting to 7 isn't going to be difficult at all. So yeah, this could really snowball just that ETB effect.
Mm-hmm. And I think there was some folks talking about like Tatiova, or in your case, like you use is it AC? That the way the enter the battlefield trigger resolves on the Cultivator Colossus is that you're going to repeat the process and go through that draw play land effect until you can't do that anymore. And every time that like Tatiova or AC triggers, like that's going to go on the stack, but it's not going to start to resolve until Cultivator Colossus has fully resolved.
I see.
So keep that in mind. You're not going to get extra cards as you're kind of going through it,
okay.
but you will get them at the end of it.
Yeah.
Right. So you're still going to get a huge advantage.
Yeah.
I'm super excited about this for my Multani deck.
Oh yeah.
Multani deck cares about putting a bunch of lands onto the battlefield and then creating a bunch of big dummies. And this is a big dummy with trample, and that deck plays like I think like 40 or like 42 lands or something like that.
Yeah.
So ton of lands. Really cool card.
Dig Up is next. It's 1 green for a sorcery. It has Cleave for 1 double black green. Search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. If you cleave it, you get to search your library for a card, put it into your hand, then shuffle. So just get whatever you want.
Like two sections of text there cut out, and it's like, okay, I gotta read this sentence again here.
This was the first Cleave card I think I saw spoiled, and I'm like, what the fuck is this shit?
It just feels like lazy card design. It's like, yeah, just put some brackets around it. It's fine.
Look, we got to get this thing to the printer.
Yeah. I mean, this is a good card. I'm pretty happy. Like in the early game, if I need an extra land, I'm just going to like pay 1 on turn 1 to get an extra land and set up my game. And then on the flip side, have like, what is it? Diabolic Tutor.
Yeah.
For 4 mana. So like if you're happy playing either half of this card, like, yeah, I'd play it.
Mm-hmm. Glorious Sunrise is next. It's 3 green for an enchantment. At the beginning of combat on your turn, choose 1. Creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain trample until end of turn. Target land gains tap, add 3 green until end of turn. Draw a card if you control a creature with power 3 or greater, and you gain 3 life. So I think this sort of encapsulates what everything green wants to do. The only downside is that it is a 5-mana enchantment that doesn't do anything when it comes into play the turn you play it.
Well, it triggers on combat, so you can set it up.
That's true. You can set it up that way.
Yeah.
But the nice thing about this is, I don't know how much of a target something like this is going to be for removal. So, it's sort of like Garrick's Uprising. It's like, yeah, it's a card draw engine, but, when you have things like Smothering Tide or like Bolas' Citadel hanging around, those, or like Aetherflux Reservoir, those seem like better targets for artifact enchantment removal. So, I would prefer it if this card wasn't quite 5 mana, like 4 would be nice, and then like maybe let's change some things on it. This I like this card. I don't know if I'm gonna play it anywhere, but something about this card just rubs me the right way.
Yeah, like it's one of those things where it's like, back in part 1 we talked about wedding invitation or whatever it was called. Mm-hmm. Or wedding announcement. I can't remember the exact name. But it had all these little hoops that you jump through to draw a card, and then it flipped to an anthem. And this card is just like whatever you want. You pick whatever you want. You could draw a card. You could give your team +1/+1 trample. You could ramp that turn. You could gain 3 life. Like, pick whatever works best for you at the time, and come back next turn and do it all again.
Yeah.
Like it's just like. It's just the difference between green and white is that white has to jump through hoops to do minor effects, and green just gets all of those effects whenever it wants.
Laid to Rest is next. It's 3 and a green for an enchantment. Whenever a human you control dies, draw a card. Whenever a creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it dies, you gain 2 life.
If you care about humans, you care about +1/+1 counters, like, there you go. Kill him.
Massive Might is next. It's 1 green for an instant. Target creature gets +2/+2 and gains trample until end of turn. Getting back on the Pauper train here, I am going to try this card in Pauper Infect. If you have like a beefy Infect creature that you've pumped and your opponent can just chump block it, that stinks. You throw trample on it, now we're talking. They can't just chump block it anymore. So I think, like the last episode with Voice of the Blessed, not sure what I would cut for Massive Might, but I was briefly looking at my deck list and some other Pauper Infect deck lists, and there's not a ton of trample granting cards, pump spells. So I like this. The trample is really a solid addition to that kind of strategy. Reclusive Taxidermist is next. It's 1 and a green for a 1/2 human druid. It gets +3/+2 as long as there are 4 or more creature cards in your graveyard, and you can tap it to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. That's kind of a creepy hobby, hey, taxidermy.
Yeah, to each their own.
Yeah,
but
sure.
You gotta be pretty invested in handling dead animals.
Yeah,
it's like want to experience taxidermy.
Yeah, hopefully like that's your job or something, because I think it's expensive to get it done.
Oh, I'm sure it is. Yeah. This card reminds me of Werebear.
Oh yeah,
which is a bear druid that has threshold that pumps itself up and taps for mana. So does a good werebear impression. I mean, in a late game, you're playing a 2-mana 4/4, like, go for it.
Retrieve is next. It's 2 and a green for a sorcery. Return up to 1 target creature card and up to 1 target non-creature permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. Exile Retrieve.
Yeah, so non-creature permanent could be lands, artifact, enchantments, planeswalker. Pretty flexible. But just the fact that I like, again, I've had this discussion before where it's like, I really like what they're doing with 3-mana regrowths, where it's just like, just adding on a little bit of value, just to make it a little bit more enticing to consider a 3-mana regrowth effect. But yeah, pretty solid.
Yeah, it is nice to get like 2 cards from it, right? It's a little more narrow than, classic regrowth, but it is nice to get a couple of cards instead of just one. Okay, so our last card today is a transform card. It's Uvenwald Oddity on the front side. It's 2 green for a 4/4 beast with trample and haste, and then you can just pay 5 double green to transform it. The flip side is Uvenwald Behemoth, and it looks like something from the Thing movie. It's an 8/8 beast horror with trample and haste, and other creatures you control get +1/+1 and have trample and haste. So again, something I would throw into Toski Historic Brawl, but I would even consider running this for the flip side in Yisan to get that like Concordant Crossroads type of effect. Because if you have the mana and you're cheating a bunch of creatures into play, just give them haste and Alpha Strike. But Riley, I was going to ask you, is this something you would run in your mono green Canlander deck?
Yeah, as like a top end.
Yeah,
I was definitely thinking about that. I run things like Serac the Hunt Caller,
Shifting Ceratops, right? That one too.
Shifting Ceratops. There's Questing Beast. So just these like hasty or potentially hasty creatures that just swing out of nowhere, and this fits right in line with that. And I don't think that deck would be consistently getting up to 7 mana, but there's definitely been games where I've
sure
like we've had a couple games where we just kind of stalled out on both sides, and you're top decking, so like to just slam this and potentially flip it instantly into an 8/8 trample haste, that's pretty scary.
Green really is the color of haste. It doesn't feel like a red mechanic at all. I like that. Green's kind of taking it. I'm kidding, of course.
Well, I think it's secondary in green, so
yeah,
it doesn't come up too often.
No, just the good ones. So with that, we're gonna bring this installment of our Crimson Vow set review to a close. We're gonna be back next week to wrap things up with the gold cards and a couple of colorless and land cards. Thank you, as always, for listening, and just take it easy out there until, I guess it's basically going to be December next time we talk to you, everybody.
See you around.